Part 86. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 853. Boom. The eternal supreme God body and the semi-God soul are connected at this moment, and the complete source is finally formed. The things in the spiritual will make it transform madly. In a very short time, her power grows tremendously at this moment. The source directly transforms into the God source. Her source is called Supreme. The so-called Supreme is the first Holy Emperor Avenue. This is a very top source. The power of the Supreme Source can allow her to suppress a lot of power when this Supreme Source transforms into the Supreme God Source and gives birth to the Supreme Ancient God Source power. Xuanhuan suppresses her Ancient God Source power, which is not worth mentioning at this moment. At that moment, Xuanhuan was submerged in the glory. She became a true God, shining. In this God-killing ruins, she is the most dazzling person. This is a life transformation. From then on, her life flew to a higher level and reached endless eternity. She succeeded. Only she and Zhang Zizai will know how difficult it is. Only she herself knew how much Zhang Zizai had helped her to get to this point. He knew her so well that every word he said was like a fire burning on her body. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. At this moment, she was as bright and shining as the sun. At this time, she was holding the Tebe Supreme Sword in her hand. She was like the king among gods, looking at the dull Xuanhuan indifferently. The fire in her heart was still not extinguished. The sentence just now to kill him was still burning in her heart. Become a god. Haha, you are really tenacious. You can become a god at this time. It's eye-opening. I feel that you are really a peerless talent. But you big fool, don't you know that after becoming a god, the divine calamity will come, which is the time when you are most vulnerable. At this time, you are more vulnerable than the source realm, haha. Xuanhuan was just stunned for a moment, and then laughed wildly. There are source calamities in the source realm, one stronger than the other. There are no tribulations in the initial God realm, but the real tribulations are gathered at the end. If you want to truly become a god, you must go through the tribulation of the gods, which is the most difficult tribulation. Many people can become gods, but they cannot withstand the tribulation of the gods. To become a god, you must have a perfect source and transform into a god source. You now have the power of the ancient God source, but this is only the foundation. Next, the tribulation of the gods will come soon. There are two tribulations of the gods, and the tribulations encountered by each person may not be the same. One is called the physical tribulation, which comes and destroys the physical body. Once it can withstand, the physical body can be tempered into the body of the ancient God and have a lifespan of 10,000 years. One is called the soul tribulation, which comes and destroys the soul. Once it can withstand, the soul can be tempered into a divine soul, which is eternal and immortal. Just having a divine source is not a true God. No one can escape the tribulation of the gods. Even if Xuanhuan already has a divine body and a half-god soul, she still needs the training of this tribulation of the gods to pass the test given to her by the earth. So for her, the divine calamity is coming soon. After becoming a god, she is definitely more dangerous in Xuanhuan's eyes. Now, as long as she is slightly affected, she can be killed by the divine calamity. Therefore, no one will choose to become a god in front of the enemy. Xuanhuan was very happy, but he never expected that when he was happy, Xuanhuan said something. Then, I will send you to hell before the divine calamity comes. Her tone was very cold, but at this moment, she raised the Tebe Supreme Divine Sword, and the Supreme Ancient Divine Source power burst out fiercely. She rushed towards Xuanhuan like a white light. Xuanhuan's heart was shocked and he wanted to laugh even more. Do you think I'm a waste? I just got the Divine Source, and you want to kill me? In response to him, Xuanhuan's hot and rough sword came to kill him. Xuanhuan sneered, holding the blood prison sealing sword and rushed up, Sweeping the sword, blood and energy rushed. He wanted to let Xuanhuan know that even if she had the divine source, she couldn't compare with him. Puff. Zhang Zizai saw that scene. He saw that Xuanhuan slashed down with the sword, directly shaking off Xueming's blood prison sealing sword, and the Tebe Supreme Divine Sword flashed like a white light, directly splitting Xueming's in half. Xueming's died tragically on the spot, and his soul escaped. He looked at Xuanhuan and screamed in despair. Maybe all this was unbelievable to him, but death was a fact. Don't kill. Before he could say a desperate and terrified voice, a sword light killed the soul, making it impossible for him to be reborn or leave a legacy. His soul was annihilated, and the two halves of the ancient god's body flew to who knows where. Only the blood prison sealing sword was still stuck in the ground, dim and without light. Once the owner died, it was already ownerless. Zhang Zizai was happy for Xuanhuan. She had indeed broken through herself and found a chance for them. Zhang Zizai sighed that this girl didn't let down at the most critical moment and finally got a breath. The reason why he was suppressed by Yan Qingqi was actually to help Xuanhuan. Zhang Zizai gave her a thumbs up. After she killed Xuemingzi, she looked at Zhang Zizai eagerly, wanting to take credit from him. But at this time, Zhang Zizai had already seen that dark clouds were rolling over her head. The divine tribulation arrived when she took action. At this time, countless violent lightning was flashing in the dark clouds. The divine tribulation was about to come, and she had no time to do anything else. You go through the tribulation first, and I will entangle him, Zhang Zizai arranged. Once she passes the divine tribulation, she can be considered to be a god safely. Now is still a stage with many variables. In addition to the dark clouds, Zhang Zizai also saw white fire burning on her body. She must be very uncomfortable now. The physical tribulation is the annihilation tribulation, and the soul tribulation is the burning heart tribulation. These are the top divine tribulations. They are ranked in the top 3. These two divine tribulations are the most powerful, the most difficult to pass, and have the highest mortality rate. However, once they succeed, the divine body and divine soul forged will be much stronger than others. On the path of cultivation of the ancient gods, this is a very important asset, as important as the divine source. Totem, divine source, divine body, and divine soul are the 4 keys of the ancient gods. Xuanhuan is still very dangerous facing these 2 tribulations at this time, so Zhang Zizai must let her go through it with peace of mind. He can only say that it is still a thrilling stage now. Yan Qingqi, who has a terrifying soul attack ability, is already troublesome enough, and there may be another existence hidden in the dark. Although Xuemingzi is dead, the crisis today is far from over. Qingfeng Longke is dead, and he has no time to understand what is going on with Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng, because Yan Qingqi at this time has fallen into an even crazier situation. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 854. He watched with his own eyes as Zhang Zizai helped Xuanhuan become a god. Perhaps, that was something he had dreamed of, but Zhang Zizai did it. Perhaps he was thinking that after this process, there was no possibility for him and Sister Xuanhuan to be together. He could definitely see that the look in Xuanhuan's eyes when she looked at Zhang Zizai was something he would never get in his life, and it made him completely crazy with envy. Very good, very good. You are so cruel and don't treat me as a human being. Then don't blame me. I will fight to the death with you. Zhang Zizai, you die first. After you die, she and they will all die. You must die cleanly, Yan Qingqi laughed grimly. He suppressed Zhang Zizai with the 8-part pagoda, and the whole person was as gloomy as a ghost. I've had enough of you. Finally, he didn't have to worry about Xuanhuan's affairs. Zhang Zizai had been suppressed by this guy for so long, and he had been angry for a long time. No matter what you have suffered, we have not found a way to deal with you. You are not strong enough to bear it, but you take your anger out on us. It only shows that you, Yan Qingqi, are not a man at all. You want to kill me, but you also want to attack them. Think about it carefully. Is this you? Zhang Zizai took out the 33 killing gods and mysterious soldiers in his hand. With the long sword in his hand, although his head hurt, his fighting power was still there. Haha, you are teaching me a lesson. Who are you? Do you have the qualifications? Can you take a piss and look at yourself to see what humble origin you are? Yan Qingqi laughed grimly. He stared at Zhang Zizai and said with a sly smile, I will cut your body into pieces with a knife and eat them as snacks, hee hee. I'll go to your whole family, pervert. Zhang Zizai could only think that he was really crazy. He didn't do it, and Yan Qingqi killed him again. He had never shown mercy from the beginning, and it was the same now. His strength was nothing, but the ability of the soul impact was too strong. Even the demon lord Cauldron couldn't stop it. It can be seen what the concept is. Before taking action, Zhang Zizai had seen from the corner of his eyes that the dark cloud of thunder had already bombarded Su Yuxi's body, and her soul was still being burned by the heart-burning disaster. She was now resisting all this with a strong will. This process required enduring a great disaster. This was the suffering of cultivation, and everyone had to endure it, and it was understandable. Die, Yan Qingqi came with another soul attack. Zhang Zizai could only silently recite the Taixi Universe soul refining technique at this time, which had a certain resistance and repair effect. Otherwise, this guy would have been demented long ago. He really couldn't bear it. Die your ancestors. To deal with this guy, it is better to strike first. After enduring an attack, Zhang Zizai directly launched the great chaos thunder god Flash Step. In addition to the killing god Xianbing, he also had the soul binding net and the soul chasing thorn. He quickly approached Yan Qingqi, and while gritting his teeth to withstand the next soul attack, he directly started the battle with the infinite time-breaking blade and hit Yan Qingqi. Next, the soul binding net and the soul chasing thorn were both used to kill, and he held the killing god mystical weapon in his hand and directly used the great chaos immortal sword formation. Using the god-level totem divine weapon to perform this battle tactic, under the effect of the 33 killing god sword chi that burst out formed the immortal sword formation to suppress it, and the surging sword chi enveloped it. Even the 8th division pagoda of Yan Qingqi could not stop it. Apart from the ability of soul attack, he was actually the same as before. Boom! At this time, Zhang Zizai was still shocked once, and the demon lord Cauldron was shaking violently. He had a splitting headache but still continued to attack. Fortunately, it was still effective. Under the suppression of the immortal sword formation, the 33 killing god sword chi rushed to Yan Qingqi's body, killing many sword marks on his body and injuring him again. Several sword chis have penetrated his body. Yan Qingqi's body was covered in blood, but his eyes were still crazy. He smiled and looked at Zhang Zizai, saying, "You are very powerful, right? It's really enviable. It's a pity that I won't let you get what you want. Next, let me show you what pain is, hee hee." Injured like this, and still with this attitude, this Yan Qingqi is really amazing. But, he did something even more amazing. At this moment, he suddenly rushed towards Su Yuxi, who was not far away and could reach her in the blink of an eye. "Sister Yuxi, Qingqi is here to send you, a bitch, to hell," he laughed, looking at Su Yuxi who was struggling to fight against the thunder and flames. Su Yuxi could definitely hear this, so she trembled. The violent annihilation and burning heart calamity were still going on, and she was still gritting her teeth to fight. Zhang Zizai suddenly felt cold in his heart. What he was most worried about happened. Yan Qingqi actually used the ability of Soul Impact to directly deal with Su Yuxi who was undergoing a major test of the burning heart calamity. Go to hell. After that impact, Su Yuxi suddenly let out a shrill scream. It was the feeling of her soul being torn apart. The burning heart tribulation was already very terrible, and this impact simply dragged her into the hell of hell. Haha. Seeing Suyuexi screaming like this, seeing that she seemed to be about to be torn into pieces by the divine tribulation, and seeing that her end was so miserable, Yan Qingqi laughed grimly and said, "This is just the beginning. Come again and again. Today I will let you know that I, Yan Qingqi, am not someone you bitches can easily bully. If you want to be a pair of dogs and bitches with Zhang Zizai, you have to see if I agree. Hee, go to hell." The lethality of the soul impact, Zhang Zizai could not help Suyuexi block it at all. It was impossible to resist. Zhang Zizai only knew at this moment that if this madman continued, it would only take a second time for Suyuexi to die. Now she seemed to be still holding on in pain, hovering between life and death, but if it happened again, she would definitely die. After all, she was in the divine calamity and had no power to protect herself. She probably never thought in her life that Yan Qingqi would want to kill her at such a time, which made her sad. In fact, she still regarded him as a friend. As for men and women, it was impossible for her from the beginning. She could not have feelings for a person like a younger brother. But now the demon barrier, no one can solve it. She seemed to be destined to die. She had already felt that the second time that could cause her a devastating blow was about to come. The first time had already severely damaged her soul, and the second time would definitely kill her instantly. And there was no doubt about it. Zhang Zizai also knew that all this was beyond doubt. The son of the Lord of the Imperial God? Now in his eyes, there was only a peak pervert. If he hesitated a little, he would not be Zhang Zizai. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 855. This time he was very clean and neat. Yan Qingqi's attention was all on Suyuexi. He was behind Yan Qingqi. Now he went straight forward. He didn't dare to waste a single moment, because his soul impact was only a moment, and he had to solve it before that moment. Infinite time-breaking blade. Then, the killing god Xianbing several swords, directly through his head, source, and heart. He must make Yan Qingqi die instantly. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Otherwise, even if he had a breathing time, he could make Suyuexi fall into ruin. His decisiveness and calmness were beyond ordinary people. Yan Qingqi was still maintaining a ferocious posture, but at this moment, his eyes were completely absent-minded, his body fell softly to the ground, his eyes were still wide open, but he had lost his spirit. In order to prevent him from resurrecting and disturbing Suyuexi, Zhang Zizai kicked his body away after killing him. At this time, he didn't care about anything else. He held the killing god Xianbing and stood by Suyuexi. The thrilling moment made him sweat. He raised his head and saw that Suyuexi was still in danger. She cried out in pain, but fortunately she was still holding on and didn't let the god's tribulation completely kill her. Good man, let God bless you. He shook his head. He didn't expect all this to go so fast. Yan Qingqi was really dead. Yu Shenjun had lost his son. He didn't have time to think about what would happen next, because he knew that the current killing god ruins were not safe. Now the fog has dissipated a lot. He quickly came to Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng. They were still alive, but they were seriously injured and unconscious. For the time being, Zhang Zizai could only use the Holy Light Talisman to heal their skin injuries. At the same time, his eyes were always fixed on Yan Qingqi's body. Everything today was too weird. Now Suyuexi was out of danger. He knew that he, the only one who was awake, had to hold on. Something appeared. He saw a white silkworm pupa crawling out of Yan Qingqi's mouth. The silkworm pupa was covered in blood and looked very weak, but it was still wriggling. Although the silkworm pupa was, it reminded Zhang Zizai of the soul-eating queen ant he had seen before. The soul-eating queen ant was good at soul attacks. Unexpectedly, she also had the means to get into people's bodies. Yan Qingqi's ability must have come from her. Maybe his madness was also related to the soul-eating queen ant. This is a divine beast. Xuemingzi is dead, but it is still alive. It really came into the ruins of the god of killing. Zhang Zizai's sword pierced Yan Qingqi's head. The sword energy of the god of killing might have pierced it. There was blood on it, and it did not continue to grow, nor did it turn into a human body. Instead, it appeared on the tip of Yan Qingqi's nose. It had no eyes, but Zhang Zizai knew it was looking at him. Sure enough, the danger was not over yet. At this moment, the ground shook. The location of the soul-eating ant queen was in the direction of the door of the rear hall. As the ground shook, Zhang Zizai saw hundreds of blood-red eyes like lanterns appear behind the soul-eating ant queen. The soul-eating ant appeared. The entrance to the god of killing ruins was very narrow. Maybe not many people got in now, but the number was still increasing. Sooner or later, the god of killing ruins would burst. It seemed that even if Xuemingzi and Yan Qingqi were killed, the four of them would still be doomed. Now the three of them could not move, and only Zhang Zizai was left. Facing the soul-eating ant queen and the increasing number of soul-eating ants, the soul-eating ants were completely excited when they saw them. After all, this was their prey. Zhang Zizai couldn't wait for the soul-devouring ants to come up, he had to stop them in front, because once the soul-devouring ants got close, Suyuexi and the other three would definitely die. He was holding the god-killing Xianbing, and when the soul-devouring ants were still restless and had not received any orders, he was already very close to the soul-devouring ant queen. He was like a hero, because there was no way out at this time, the god-killing ruins were closed, and they were completely locked here. "Can't you give me a way out?" Zhang Zizai asked the soul-devouring ant queen. He knew it would definitely understand. However, this insect without eyes and mouths did not give him any response, but the soul-devouring ants became more restless. Now that they have seen him, and the soul-devouring ant queen is also there, it is estimated that even the Demon Lord Cauldron is useless. After all, the Demon Lord Cauldron has a small range, and at most it can only protect Ningmufeng and Yun Ziao, and Suyuexi, who is undergoing the test of the divine calamity. He can't help at all. So, he can only fight with one person, dealing with countless soul-devouring ants. Others may think he is crazy. But Zhang Zizai still walked up. Sometimes there is no way out in life. The back hall of the god-killing ruins is closed, and he can't hide anywhere. Perhaps the desperate situation in front of him is bigger and more hopeless than before. However, Zhang Zizai is fearless. Now that Suyuexi has become a god, he is also ready to become a god. Sometimes, courage and will can change everything. At least Suyuexi should have seen that he killed Yan Qingqi and then stood in front of countless soul-eating ants. Zhang Zizai really wanted to live. He had a hunch that it would not be too difficult for him to become a god in the future. Perhaps the soul-eating ants admired his courage, but they were not moved by it. Instead, they rushed forward and prepared to tear Zhang Zizai into pieces. Zhang Zizai took a deep breath, took out a black divine talisman, activated it, and integrated it into himself. The immortal demon body had been created, and the immortal magic power began to flow in his body. If he didn't kill someone at this moment, he would die. Source beasts also have souls. The immortal talisman can kill people and beasts. He didn't know if he could hold on, but this was his only way. If this didn't work, he would have to accept his fate. Who made this test so great? The first soul-eating ant came forward and was killed in half by Zhang Zizai, and then turned into a black gas and poured into Zhang Zizai's body. Open. This is the first drop of blood. The Demon Lord Cauldron can block the crazy bites of the soul-eating ants for Zhang Zizai. To be honest, the advantage of the soul-eating ants is their large number, but their individual ability is not strong. They can kill the ancient gods and can consume them alive. In fact, not many of them really come into contact with each other. If the leader of the blood god camp had a divine totem weapon like the demon lord cauldron, he might not have died. Of course, under the continuous attack, Zhang Zizai could not withstand it. His demon lord cauldron had been completely swallowed by the soul-devouring ants. He could only kill. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 856. The 33 god-killing Xian soldiers, with one sword, can kill more than a dozen soul-eating ants. Countless black air turned into lifeless magic and became part of Zhang Zizai's power. With every kill, he is getting stronger. Fortunately, at the entrance of the god-killing ruins, he will not be surrounded by millions of soul-eating ants at the same time. Now there are almost thousands of soul-eating ants around him. The speed at which the soul-eating ants come in is almost the same as the speed at which he kills. The surroundings are already full of corpses. If this continues, the back hall will be filled with the corpses of soul-eating ants. Soul-eating ants usually use corpses to pile up enemies to death. Every time they attack, there will be a large number of deaths, but they are all within their tolerance range. They only need to ensure that the entire group is increasing. They can eventually consume the enemy to death, because in the army of soul-eating ants, even the ancient gods will despair, and the soul of the ancient gods can at least allow the soul-eating ant queen to give birth to 1 million soul-eating ants. They can withstand a loss of 1 million. But today, it was strange that Zhang Zizai had no intention of being exhausted to death during their siege. He was getting stronger at a very terrifying speed. Every time he killed a soul-eating ant, he could get stronger. This kind of strength could gradually reach the level of fear of the soul-eating ant queen. My lifeless talisman can make me stronger and stronger. You can't do anything to me. If you keep killing, I will only slaughter all your soul-eating ants. Even you will die. Zhang Zizai was certain. First, the soul-eating ant queen should have given him the mountain, so his ability to do it himself was currently limited. Second, there were indeed not many soul-eating ants in the killing god ruins at present, because of the corridor at the door, there were not many soul-eating ants coming in at the same time. As Zhang Zizai became stronger and stronger, he killed more smoothly, and the balance was gradually broken, that is, the soul-eating ants that came in were not enough for him to kill. In this case, he believed that the soul-eating ant queen would have considerations in her heart. You and I, we don't interfere with each other. These people are the children of the top gods. If you eat them, you will definitely die without a burial place. The one who died just now was the son of a god. I advise you to escape quickly, otherwise you and all the soul-eating ants will die. I know you can understand what I say. Have you heard of the God King Palace? Zhang Zizai can now cope with the impact of the soul-eating ants. He kills faster and faster. If the back hall is full of soul-eating ant corpses, it will be difficult for other soul-eating ants to come in. This place is narrow, which finally becomes Zhang Zizai's advantage. Endless lifeless magic power circulates in his body. After killing tens of thousands of soul-eating ants, his current strength should be able to defeat everyone below the ancient god. The body of the soul-eating ant queen is still expanding. It is now as big as an arm. It is estimated that she will not have the fighting power at the beginning. Zhang Zizai is glad that he killed Yan Qingqi when he killed it, otherwise he would have been killed now. You killed the man, not me. At this moment, Zhang Zizai saw that the soul-eating ants in front of him suddenly stopped and formed such words in front of him. The soul-eating ant queen really understood what he said. Do you think you can get away with it when the god is furious? Zhang Zizai laughed. He was still afraid of the soul-eating ant queen. Although he had the lifeless talisman, who wanted to kill millions of soul-eating ants. He could only show his strength and let it retreat. After Zhang Zizai finished, All the soul-eating ants stopped moving, and then some of them formed a line of words in front of him. You will die too. After this line of words appeared, one of the soul-eating ants picked up the white silkworm pupa and put it in his mouth. The next moment, the other soul-eating ants began to move the bodies of their companions. In a very short time, the entire Killing God ruins was directly emptied. When Zhang Zizai saw that the entire Killing God ruins was empty and there were no more soul-eating ants, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. The soul-eating queen ant made the right choice. If it stayed here, it would only have one possibility of death. It wanted to eat a few more souls before leaving, but the key was that Zhang Zizai was too difficult to deal with, and it felt that it would take a lot of time. Although it was a clever trick this time, it also won the possibility of survival. Zhang Zizai felt that after all these changes, he was almost exhausted. It was finally over. But his heartstrings were still tense, because Suyuexi was still in the tribulation of the divine calamity, and Yan Qingqi's soul shock just now had brought her too much lethality. He took a deep breath, the effect of the lifeless talisman was dissipating, and the power was leaving his body, and this process would also be a little tiring. But he thought that this time, escaping from danger would also be of great benefit to his own path of cultivation. While helping Suyuexi, he was actually helping himself. He simply put away the blood prison sealing sword. After all, it was a divine totem weapon, and Suyuexi and the others were not short of it, and he might still be able to use it. It was indeed difficult to subdue a divine totem weapon. Now he could only continue to wait. Finally, the might of the divine tribulation slowly passed, and after enduring the disturbance of Yan Qingqi, she gradually returned to calm. It is estimated that she managed to hold on, which shows that she is actually very tough inside. It should be that after enduring the training of the Annihilation Thunder Tribulation, her eternal supreme divine body became even more powerful, and her half-divine soul finally grew into a real divine soul. Suyuexi was completely different at this time. Zhang Zizai took a look and was shocked. After becoming a god, her temperament has improved and she can be on par with her sister. After all, her temperament is completely different, and her beauty is more holy and majestic. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. But her eyes are still closed and her brows are slightly wrinkled. It may be because of Yan Qingqi's harassment. There is still some influence. How is it? Zhang Zizai asked. Not very good, I may have to sleep for a while, my soul is a little unstable. She opened her eyes slightly. Although she became a god, she still looked very weak. Zhang Zizai. You. Thank you. There was some special look in her eyes, which she would never give to others. You are so polite, Zhang Zizai smiled. A friend in need is a friend indeed. It's great that she can survive today. Help me save them. There are spiritual medicines in it. They can all be used. She was a little unsteady and handed the space jade pendant to Zhang Zizai. Okay, Zhang Zizai took it and gently supported Suyuexi. He could see that her soul was still very turbulent and she was just trying to hold on. You inherited the legacy of the god of killing. I don't need it anymore, she said the last sentence with her eyes blurred. After that, she grabbed Zhang Zizai's arm with both hands, fainted in his arms, closed her eyes, and fell asleep peacefully. I was still the only one left. Fortunately, she estimated that she would be able to adjust after sleeping for a while and returning to the God King Palace. Zhang Zizai had to deal with Yun Xiao and the others quickly. He took out some soft cushions from the space jade pendant for the three of them to lie on, and then thought about what kind of elixir to give Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng. Then, inherit the legacy of the god of killing. Open the space jade pendant, there are so many clothes and jewelry inside, many pink belly bands and so on. Zhang Zizai was embarrassed to look at them more. Today, 7 chapters have been updated. I owed you 8 chapters in July, and there were 5 chapters in August. I paid back 2 chapters, and today I paid back 3 chapters at once. So I only owe 3 chapters. I will write and pay them back when I am in a good state. I guarantee my character, no need to question it. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 857. Zhang Zizai found the pill that Xuanhuan had used last time in her space jade pendant. She was able to recover quickly after being severely injured by Xuanhuan, which meant that the pill was very effective. He didn't know what kind of treasure it was, so he asked Yun Xiao and Neng Mufeng to take one each. To be honest, they were seriously injured, because the blood prison sealing sword had the effect of sealing the internal organs. They were almost killed for a period of time. Under the effect of Zhang Zizai's purification talisman, the blood prison sealing sword qi gradually disappeared, and the damage inside the body began to recover. It is estimated that it will take some time to wake up from the coma. Xuanhuan also fell into a deep sleep. What she needed to recuperate was her soul, which was estimated to take longer. They were all recovering slowly, and Zhang Zizai came to the corpse of the god of killing. So many things happened in front of him, but he was still unmoved. After all, he no longer belonged to this era. Senior, I am Zhang Zizai, a junior. I am grateful for the good fortune. If I can inherit the legacy, I will definitely carry forward the good fortune of the senior. Zhang Zizai bowed first, and then, like Xuanhuan, he stretched out his hand and placed his palm on the remains of the god of death. Xuanhuan has become a god. She inherited the legacy only for the sake of the semi-god soul. After becoming a god, the god king will naturally give her endless good fortune. When his palm touched the palm of the god of death corpse, Zhang Zizai felt the vibration of the god of death Xianbing in the space jade pendant. He took out the god of death Xianbing and held it in his hand. This should be the weapon of the god of death. The level of the god of death Xianbing is very high. Zhang Zizai can only exert 1/10 of its power at most. When the god of death Xianbing was in his hand, Zhang Zizai immediately found that there was a direct connection between him and the god of death corpse. A burst of black fog filled his eyes. In the black fog, he saw a crystal light on the god of death corpse. The light continued to emerge from its body and gathered towards Zhang Zizai. The inheritance has begun. He could gradually see that the image became clearer in front of his eyes. The god of killing is not bloodthirsty, but for protection. He seemed to be talking to himself. Zhang Zizai saw the shadow in the mist. He was black and shrouded in darkness. He had his back to Zhang Zizai. He was tall and slender, with a noble temperament. It was difficult for him to be associated with the word god of killing. You and I are destined to meet. Maybe many years later, you can see me. The figure had his back to Zhang Zizai. Doesn't his words mean that he is not dead yet? But how could an ancient god who is not dead leave behind the inheritance of the god of killing? Since you are my descendant, you should pursue the eternal way. You still have a long way to go on the path of the dragon. The voice of the figure was all irrelevant, but during this process, Zhang Zizai felt that many things from his body entered his soul. His soul was transforming because of those fluorescent lights. He was originally a soul in the virtual god realm, very close to the soul. Now with the nourishment and integration of the will of the god, his soul has rapidly transformed, just like a grass into a big tree. Even if it is not a real soul, it is very strong. When everything in the inheritance was integrated into Zhang Zizai's soul, his half-soul became unprecedentedly powerful. What flashed vaguely was a large number of skills, battle tactics, and the way of cultivation of the gods in the inheritance, but these were only fleeting. This was part of the inheritance. Zhang Zizai had to wait until he became an ancient god before he could dig out this part of the inheritance and truly inherit and carry forward the creation of the killing god. Mortals cannot use the power of inheritance in advance. The current killing god inheritance only improves his soul. Remember, just keep going. If we are destined, We will meet again. The figure smiled. He emphasized it repeatedly, as if he was really alive. Become a god soon. My inheritance is the top-level inheritance of the God King. The god-killing mysterious weapon is not as simple as you think, but all this requires you to become a god to obtain it, otherwise, it will be in vain. After that, the corpse of the god in front of Zhang Zizai began to dissipate and turned into ashes, and the figure in the illusion also disappeared completely. The god-killing ruins fell into absolute silence again. After possessing a half-god soul, Zhang Zizai's ears and eyes became clearer. The Taixi universe soul refining technique can still be practiced, and it should be even stronger. He thought to himself. But are you sure this is a God-King level inheritance? The ancient God inheritance and the God-King level inheritance are not the same concept. The difference is as huge as the God-level totem and the God-level totem. The ancient gods are ordinary, but the gods are high-level figures in the God realm. Xuanhuan had previously obtained the Divine Lord level inheritance, which was very rare. Among the many talents in the divine domain, there were not many who possessed the Divine Lord level inheritance. The probability was even lower than that of the owner of the Divine Lord level totem. It was estimated that Xuanhuan did not know that what she gave to Zhang Zizai was the Divine Lord level inheritance. It was just that Zhang Zizai could not feel whether it was true or not. There were 3 people lying on the ground now, and he did not know whether to take them all away or wait. He checked the status of Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng and found that they had recovered well and would probably wake up in a while. So he decided to wait. The god-killing ruins were very empty now. He was about to look around to confirm whether there were other threats when he suddenly heard a sound of movement outside. It seemed that a group of people came in from outside. This group of people was very powerful, majestic, and quite oppressive. It felt that they were all ancient gods. If they were people from the blood god cult, it would be troublesome. Zhang Zizai regretted not moving them away quickly. The group of people quickly locked onto them and came to Zhang Zizai in front of them. When the two sides looked at each other for the first time, their eyes did collide. Zhang Zizai relaxed a little, because this group of people were not from the blood god cult, but disciples of the God King Palace. They were Mufeng and his subordinates stationed at the stronghold. There were a total of 10 people, all of whom were ancient gods, and Mufeng was one of the top ones. Mufeng ignored Zhang Zizai directly and came to Xuanhuan. He took a closer look and said, Xuanhuan has become a god. It should be that her soul was a little turbulent when she was crossing the calamity. It's not a problem, she will be fine after a rest. Hearing this, his subordinates all breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that they were also quite nervous. Ning Mufeng and Yun Xiao are fine too. Although they were severely injured, they have been given medicine and are recovering well. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 858. After confirming, Mufeng looked at Zhang Zizai. He didn't know Zhang Zizai very well, so he asked, the higher UPS didn't let us get close before, and now you're the only one awake. What happened to you? Did you encounter the soul-devouring Ant Queen? Zhang Zizai was about to explain what happened, especially Yan Qingqi, who had to be explained clearly, because he was controlled by the soul-devouring Ant Queen to kill Xuanhuan. Zhang Zizai had no choice but to end her life. After all, the person who died was the son of Yu Shenjun, so he must explain it clearly. He was not too nervous about this. After all, Xuanhuan could testify for him. The situation at that time was that he had no other choice. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. He was just thinking about what to say when someone suddenly exclaimed, Commander Mu, something bad has happened, come and see. Mufeng went straight over, and the people over there had already gathered together. They were naturally surrounding Yan Qingqi's body, which had many wounds that could only be done by the god-killing Xianbing, and was bloody and bruised. When he was dying, because the soul-eating queen ant crawled out, his mouth was wide open, his eyes were wide open, and he died with his eyes open. "It's all dead, it's been a while, it's impossible to save it." An ancient god's voice was slightly trembling. He understood the significance of this matter. Xuanhuan was one of the top figures in the God King Palace, and his beloved son died tragically. This was major news in the entire God realm. "Come here and find out who killed Yan Qingqi." Mu Feng suddenly turned around and looked at Zhang Zizai coldly. "Commander Mu, no need. Yan Qingqi wears the winning image talisman, which automatically records the scene of his death." An ancient god took out a talisman from Yan Qingqi's body. "Release," Mu Feng said in a deep voice. The ancient god activated the image talisman, which lasted for a short time. When the figure appeared on it, Yan Qingqi was laughing at Xuanhuan in the divine calamity. At this moment, a figure came to kill, and several swords penetrated and killed Yan Qingqi. 3 consecutive swords hit the vital points. The image talisman flashed, and finally Zhang Zizai fell down and stood in front of Yan Qingqi. At this moment, his face was clear, allowing Mu Feng and others to see the murderer clearly. Their faces were extremely shocked, and they instantly locked onto Zhang Zizai. "It turned out to be you," Mu Feng roared in a low voice, and endless murderous light burst out in his eyes, directly suppressing Zhang Zizai. "Fellow brothers, this matter is not as simple as you think. You 11 can testify for me." The situation at that time was quite complicated. Yan Qingqi was controlled by the soul-devouring Ant Queen. "So you are so bold and reckless that you directly killed the son of Lord Yu?" Mu Feng's eyes were extremely cold. He interrupted Zhang Zizai's words. When he spoke, a black clock appeared on his palm. "You don't need to talk to me. Enter the forbidden magic bell. When you return to the God King Palace, you can follow Lord Yu." Mu Feng handled things in a swift and resolute manner. For such a big event, he would not give a single word or a chance. He directly appeared on Zhang Zizai's head with the power of the ancient god. The forbidden magic bell smashed down directly, trapping Zhang Zizai in a completely dark environment. This dark space is very narrow, and it is very uncomfortable to stand up. There are barbs all around, and there is no way to escape from here. Moreover, there is a dead silence inside, which is completely isolated from the outside world. Not even a chance to explain. Zhang Zizai was a little depressed. After thinking carefully, he felt that he should not be blamed for this matter. Although he was caught by the forbidden demon bell, he thought that Xuanhuan would always wake up to testify for him. After all, he saved the daughter of the King of Gods, and the King of Gods should not let the Lord of Gods find trouble with him. Yan Qingqi's death was half his bad luck, and the other half was his own jealousy. In the forbidden demon bell, Zhang Zizai had nothing to do, so he tried to sacrifice the blood prison sealing sword, which was a divine totem weapon. The palace of the King of Gods. The heavy news that came a few days ago shocked the palace of the King of Gods. Today, the murderer and Yan Qingqi's body were escorted back together, waiting for their fate. Xi Palace is the palace of the Lord of Gods, which is extremely large, magnificent, and gorgeous. At this time, in a hall of Xi Palace, Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng both woke up. When they opened their eyes and saw the familiar layout around them, and then saw the 3 people in front of them, they were both stunned. "Dad, Mom, am I dead?" Yun Xiao asked dully, with fear in her eyes. "Silly child, you are saved and safe." Xi God and Yunying God surrounded their daughter, their faces full of pity. "This time we underestimated the danger of the God King battlefield and let you suffer," Yunying God said. "Dad," Ning Mufeng listened to their conversation and adjusted himself. Yin Zhenjun, the leader of Yin sect, was also standing next to him. After hearing the news, he rushed here directly. Surviving a great disaster will surely bring good fortune in the future. You two are lucky. This test is so thrilling, and it will also help you to a certain extent, Yin Sect Master said. Yes, it's good that you are okay. I didn't expect that this guy really let you go without any protection at all, Zai God said. He was eager to see his daughter become a god. We misunderstood his determination, so we suggested that Yao Muofeng and Qingqi follow him, said Lord Yunying. Is everyone okay? How is 11ER? Yun Ziao asked hurriedly after waking up. She is lucky. I don't know what kind of test she went through, but she actually became a god. At this age, she is the first person in the world. The pressure from the God King on her has a very good effect, Yin Zongju said. That's good, very good, Yun Ziao showed a happy smile. She remembered the situation at that time. Yan Qingqi suddenly attacked Zhang Zizai. Without Zhang Zizai's control, they were directly defeated and seriously injured. They all thought they were dead. In that situation, Suyuexi must not be spared. They estimated that it should be Suyuexi who became a god at this time and turned the tide. They really didn't know what happened later. It's not too good. 11ER is indeed good. From now on, there will be no worries. But Yan Qingqi is miserable because he lost his life in this experience. Yu Shenjun spent a lot of energy to cultivate him. Now everything is gone in one day. It's really pitiful, Zai Shenjun said. What? Qingqi is dead? Was it that Xue Mingzi who killed him? Yun Ziao grew up with Yan Qingqi, so they were definitely friends. When she heard that Yan Qingqi was dead, she couldn't help but shed tears. What Xue Mingzi? You just woke up, and everyone has a lot of questions to ask you. Now everyone is trying the murderer in the punishment hall. You can just come with me, and I'll ask you some more questions on the way, Yin Zongju said. Ning Mufeng gently held Yun Ziao's hand and wiped away her tears of sorrow. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 859. On the way. Tell us everything you know about the process. They really didn't have any protection this time and completely let them run wild, so they still don't know the specific process. After Ning Mufeng became more mentally stable, he began to understand what happened on the battlefield of the God King. From the moment he encountered the Blood God camp, hearing that the people in the Blood God camp were so cruel, Zai Shenjun felt a little guilty and said to Yun Ziao, I didn't expect that I was negligent in putting you through such a dangerous situation. If you really suffer, my mother will blame herself for the rest of her life. Don't be like this. Nothing is wrong now, and this experience has really made me understand a lot of things, Yun Ziao said. Go down first, Lord Yin Shen said. Ning Mufeng continued to the soul-eating ants, then to the blood god cult and the ruins of the killing god. From the front hall to the middle hall and then to the back hall, the killing god inheritance appeared. Xue Mingzi caused a life and death crisis for them, and then Yan Yan disappeared after Qingqi came out to cause trouble, and then because of Yan Qingqi, they were defeated and severely injured and fell into coma. What happened after that was never known again. That's about it? I guess U11 successfully became a god and killed Xue Mingzi, but unfortunately Yan Qingqi was killed by Xue Mingzi, Ning Mufeng said, but he was suddenly startled at this time. Question, Dad, is that Xue Mingzi not dead? How could he be punished in the punishment palace? It sounds like this Zhang Zizai has made a great contribution to your team, asked the leader of the Yin sect. That's natural. If it weren't for him, we might not be able to pass the test at the Blood God camp. Yun Ziao still admires Zhang Zizai a little. Brother Zhang is indeed very courageous and brave, Ning Mufeng said. Then let you see the truth. Zai Shenjun looked at them. The image talisman appeared in his hand and showed it to them. The scene made Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng stunned. Zhang Zizai. That's right, he was the one who killed Yan Qingqi, and now he is the murderer of the punishment hall. Impossible, he is not such a person. Yun Ziao said in disbelief. Wherever there is anything impossible, These are facts and evidence. Zai Shenjun's tone became serious. Yao and Feng I have to remind you about this matter. Now Yu Shenjun is very sad. The God King has indeed taken some risks in this matter. With their relationship, they definitely need a murderer to make Yu Shenjun feel better. Zhang Zizai is just a person, he is not the murderer. Even if he is not, he must be the one to take the lead this time, otherwise how can he relieve the hatred in Yu Shenjun's heart, Yun Ying Shenjun said. Yes, this is already an established fact. You can just follow the situation and don't have other thoughts. This matter should not be a big deal, just let Yu Shenjun deal with the murderer. If not, you can let Dushan. How did the king explain it to Yu Shenjun? Although it was Yu Shenjun who suggested that Yan Qingqi follow him, the God King did not know that he really wanted to put Yu11 into such a situation. Now Yu11 becomes Shen Qingqi and is dead. He must be able to relieve Yu Shenjun's sadness. Is that so? Then Zhang Zizai must die, Yun Zhao asked sadly. Death is a relief. If he dares to kill Yan Qingqi, he will definitely be tortured by Yu Shenjun for a long time. There are many ways that people want to die but can't master, Yin said calmly. What else was Yun Zhao thinking about, but Ning Mufeng took her hand and said, Yao no one can change it. After all, this is true. Although I don't know why he did this, after all, it's different from our identity. Oh. This is the truth, but Yun Zhao is still very sad. He is obviously a new friend, and the five of them should have come back together. How could this happen? Her mind was troubled on the way, and soon they came through the white mist to the most solemn Hall of Punishment. The Hall of Punishment is the place where the God King punishes criminals. Sometimes the God King will come to sit down, and the criminals sentenced here even include the God King. Zhang Zizai's status was far from the standard of the punishment palace, but because what he had done was big enough, it had alarmed the top of the God King palace, so Mufeng was ordered to escort him directly to the punishment palace. After entering the punishment hall, Yun Zhao found that all the gods were present. In the top position, both the Du Shen King and Yu Shenjun were sitting on the golden seat. Now his eyes were reddish and his expression was sad. The breath is unstable. The God King next to him also looked silent. There are many important people from the God King's palace around, among them Xuanhuan and Mufeng are below. Xuanhuan looks a little depressed. She can't figure out where Zhang Zizai's ability can kill Yan Qingqi. Now everyone is worried about what happened. I'm still confused about the matter. After sect leader Yin and the others arrived, everyone was already here. The Du Shen King then said, Mufeng, release the murderer. Yes, God King. Following Mufeng's order, the forbidden demon bell in his hand grew larger. In full view of everyone, Zhang Zizai rolled down and appeared in front of everyone's sight. He still held the blood prison sealing sword in his hand. In fact, he was still refining this god-level totem weapon. Unexpectedly, it was suddenly released. When he encountered the bright light, he squinted his eyes and used the blood prison sealing sword. Putting it away, almost at the same time, what he felt was terrifying pressure. It felt like he was an ant and there were lions staring at him everywhere. This kind of pressure is enough to crush a mortal. Fortunately, he has a half-god soul, so he can bear it a little this time. But the pressure is still very huge. He looked at the big figures on the high ground with a little depression. These gods are the ones he looks up to, and the king of the gods in the center, remember that he used to treat him well. He met the eyes of the god of the gods. When he saw the god of the gods looking at him so coldly, he knew that something was wrong. The god of the gods had lost his son, and with the image symbol, he must blame himself. Zhang Zizai, what's wrong with you? Xuanhuan was right in front of him. The beauty looked at him angrily. After hearing the news, she thought that Zhang Zizai was her god disciple, and she was responsible for not disciplining him well, so she was under a lot of pressure now. God Master, God King, and all the gods, please give me some time to explain. What happened in the god-killing ruins is not as simple as you see. The real murderer is still at large. Don't let King Chi bear the hatred. If I don't speak for myself now, I will definitely be a scapegoat. However, everyone's eyes were still cold. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 860. The image symbol clearly records that you killed my son. Do you still want to make up a lie? The cold voice of Yu Shenjun echoed in the punishment hall. The punishment hall was very high and gave people a sense of pressure. Shenjun. Suyanyu was about to say something, but suddenly met her father's eyes, and she could only shut her mouth. Zhang Zizai didn't care so much. He hurriedly said, "The truth is this. There is a soul-eating queen ant next to the killing god ruins that sneaked into the killing god ruins. It got into Yan Qingqi's body and controlled Yan Qingqi. When Suyuexi survived the god tribulation, he attacked Suyuexi with the soul shock, causing Suyuexi to almost die. I was completely helpless before I took action, because if I didn't take action, Suyuexi would die in the next moment. Is she still unconscious now? She is the only one who knows all the truth. You just need to wait for her to wake up, and you will know all the truth. Suyuexi will not lie. If they give him a chance, who knows when it will be," so he hurriedly came out. "Did you think of this lie when you came back from the battlefield of the God King?" But the cold voice of the Lord of the Imperial Court was still so cruel. Zhang Zizai was depressed. Why didn't he believe the truth? At this time, the Lord of the Imperial Court looked at the Lord of the Capital and asked, "Lord of the Capital, how to deal with it?" The Lord of the Capital looked at Zhang Zizai and said, "Since it has been explained that it was indeed him who did it, the Lord of the Imperial Court can deal with it himself." Zhang Zizai thought that this matter would be clear, but the development of the matter seemed to be a little different from what he imagined. They seemed to have not heard what he said at all and made a decision directly. Letting himself be dealt with by the Lord of the Imperial Court, the Lord of the Imperial Court was so angry. Anyway, it was him who actually killed Yan Qingqi. Wouldn't he torture himself to the point of wanting to live but not wanting to die? God Master, Zhang Zizai looked around and found that no one could help him. He looked at Suyanyu and said, "I did save Yuexi. If I didn't do it, you wouldn't see her now. It wouldn't be like this without gratitude, right?" "Sorry, I don't have the right to speak here," Suyanyu whispered. Maybe she believed what Zhang Zizai said, but what she said also made Zhang Zizai really understand that they didn't seem to care about the truth. "Yes, I am a person. What does the truth mean to me?" Ning Mufeng, Yun Ziao, Yan Qingqi disappeared for no reason, and later appeared to deal with me because they let the soul-eating queen ant control me. Yuexi finally became a god, and he wanted to kill Yuexi, so I took action. Can you say something for me? Zhang Zizai placed his last hope on them. After all, they were friends in the battlefield of the God King. Zhang Zizai was even their savior. Yun Ziao was about to speak, but Zai God pressed her shoulder gently, making her speechless. People only saw that both of them were silent and ignored Zhang Zizai. "Then I will take him away." Yu Shenjun stood up, his face solemn. At this moment, Zhang Zizai knew that he should know the truth and know why Yan Qingqi died. He suddenly figured it out. Even if he was trying to save Suyuexi, so what? Who would care? Yu Shenjun needed someone to relieve his sadness. He would definitely exterminate the soul-devouring ants, but he, who finally took action, would definitely not escape his revenge. After all, to the Supreme God King, he was just a speck of dust. What truth this speck of dust brought was not important at all. So Suyanyu was powerless. Yun Ziao wanted to speak, but her parents would not let her speak, and even directly controlled their children, making Yun Ziao, "I don't know any of this. I was seriously injured and unconscious." She used a word I don't know to make Zhang Zizai's words completely lose credibility. Yu Shenjun stretched out his hand, and an irresistible force absorbed Zhang Zizai's body, making him go in the direction of Yu Shenjun. A furnace appeared in his hand. It was a white furnace with snow-white flames burning on the surface. Hell God furnace, Zhang Zizai is miserable in this life. Indistinctly, he heard someone say something. It should be the voice of a certain God Jun. Even this God Jun was so amazed at the Hell God furnace, which showed that it was definitely a nightmare for anyone. He was just a mortal, not worthy of the level of the punishment hall and the Hell God furnace. It was Yan Qingqi who gave him this honor. Zhang Zizai suddenly felt a little funny. He laughed at himself for being too real. He should have fled quickly after killing Yan Qingqi. Although he couldn't escape far, it was better than staying there and waiting to die. The funny thing is that he actually thought that he could explain it clearly because he saved Suyuexi. Now it seems that no one cares about his life or death. I asked Suyuexi to forget her identity and become a god, but I even forgot my own identity and status. Am I really stupid? He admitted that he didn't make many mistakes. This time he really saw it clearly. He had a deep epiphany and knew who made the rules of this place and the true status of ordinary people in front of the gods. Unfortunately, it was too late. Even if it was not true this time, the fact that he killed Yan Qingqi meant that he had no chance of survival. He was sucked in front of him by Yu Shenjun, and then he took it in his hand. He opened the Hell God furnace. The white fire burning inside was so terrifying, but he had no expression on his face and was indifferent. He was about to throw Zhang Zizai into it. For him, the matter was solved. Yan Qingqi was not his first child, nor was he the last. 15 years was just a moment in his life. He was not that sad, but this matter did need to be resolved and could not be left without a conclusion. The King of Gods also gave him enough face. When he threw Zhang Zizai in, there should be a new chapter. No one thought that Zhang Zizai could still survive. Perhaps he still gave face. At this moment, a snow-white figure suddenly rushed into the punishment hall and rushed to everyone. She hung a sword on her neck and said bitterly, "Let him go. Otherwise I will die here immediately. Let him go." Everyone was a little stunned. Even the hand of the Lord of God stopped. Zheng. The girl was Suyuexi. She had become a god and transformed into a new life. But people couldn't believe that she said that sentence just now. "Don't make trouble," the King of Gods said, and her sword left her hand, and she was like being tied up, motionless. "Try to kill him. If he dies, there is only one thing I can do in my life, and that is suicide." It was the first time she dared to stare at her father like this, enunciating each word. Each word was like a sharp knife, causing the gods present to shiver. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 861. In the Palace of Punishment, the girl in the white dress had extremely firm eyes and determination. There was no room for negotiation at all, because she knew very well that if she didn't gamble so much, Zhang Zizai would be put into the Hell God furnace in the next moment. In it, you will never get out for the rest of your life. Then she might regret it for the rest of her life. She knew what kind of torture the prison god furnace was, and it was not something that ordinary ancient gods could endure, not to mention that Zhang Zizai was not an ancient god. Maybe, she only had one chance. She felt that she had never been as brave as she was at this moment in her life, and she never thought that she would actually talk to her father in this way in the Palace of Punishment. King Dushan remained silent, and Lord Yushan made no next move. These superior super figures, seemed to have no solution for Suyuexi, who was a newborn calf who was not afraid of tigers. This matter itself was not a big deal to Yu Shenjun and Dushan King, but when Suyuexi stood up with such an attitude, they were unable to resolve the matter, so things seemed to change. It has become difficult to solve. After all, there were a lot of people watching in the punishment hall. Yes, everyone can see Suyuexi's attitude, which surprised King Dushan very much. When the palace of punishment falls into deathly silence and undercurrents surge, there will always be smart people who will stand up and resolve the embarrassment of the Dushan king and the royal god lord. The most important thing for them now is the embarrassment. Have 11er woke up? From what you said, it seems that you have a different opinion. Don't get excited yet. If you have anything on your mind, just come out slowly. Zai Shenjun suddenly smiled. They should treat Suyuexi and the others like babies. Zai Shenjun must understand that now that Suyuexi has woken up and appears with such an attitude, which is unexpectedly so strong, it is impossible to suppress Suyuexi at this time. People know what the truth will be when word spreads, so now they can only use euphemisms way to deal with it. Sure enough, Yu Shenjun said with a gentle face, "That's right, 11er, since you've woken up, tell us who did Qingqi's death? The evidence is conclusive, could it be that it's not this person? Maybe for people like them, face is more important than anything else." Yu Shenjun would not want to suppress Suyuexi and forcefully avenge his son, so there was no need for him to do so. He still has the attitude that he hasn't determined the truth yet. Suyuexi got a chance to save her life. She quickly explained the whole process clearly, describing it so that it was almost the same as Zhang Zizai. After that, she looked at the King of Gods pleadingly and said, "Dad, please don't punish him. He is really right. He saved us several times along the way. The first time Qingqi was almost killed, and so on. He saved me. The reason why I can become a god is that he also helped me a lot. If there is a murderer besides the soul-eating ant queen in Qingqi's death, just think that the murderer is me. I didn't take good care of Qingqi and let him be controlled by the soul-eating ant queen. This should be blamed on me. It really has nothing to do with Zhang Zizai. He had no choice at the time." Suyuexi had an almost pleading expression, and if she was extremely eager, her appearance would inevitably remind people of her a lot. She was a witness on the spot, so her words were naturally authoritative. It was clear in public that Yu Shenjun wanted to throw Zhang Zizai into the god of prison furnace, and it didn't seem to sound good if it was spread out. Especially since Suyuexi might have had some extreme reaction, the more trouble there is, the more likely this turmoil will never end, and the more embarrassing the God King Palace will be. Unless King Du Shen imprisons her permanently. When everyone's attention focused on Yu Shenjun nodded and said, "Thanks to 11er for waking up in time, otherwise I would have killed someone by mistake." The truth turned out to be true, and the culprit was indeed the soul-eating ant. In the end, although the young man took action, it was really a helpless move. It is understandable. Since 11er is so grateful to this young man, I can't kill innocent people indiscriminately. After that, he gently pushed Zhang Zizai to the side of Suyuexi. The girl finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, she looked at Zhang Zizai with tears of joy. If there weren't too many people, she might have hugged her. She looked like the Suyanyu looked confused next to her, and she couldn't help but want to reach out and poke her sister's head to see if she had a fever. Did she remember that before going to the battlefield of the God King, the two of them were in a fierce rivalry, and Suyuexi disliked him so much? Why did they both end up like this not long ago? This change is too big. "Thank you soon," Suyuexi reminded. Zhang Zizai understood and quickly thanked the Lord of the Gods and Lord of the Gods. "God King, and all of you, since Zhang Zizai has no fault in this matter, I will take my leave first and go to capture the soul-eating ant queen to avenge my son." Yu Shenjun stood up and said, "Brother, please forgive me for the matter of Qingqi. My brother is sorry for this." King Dushan said. "God King must not be like this. The road to growth is inherently dangerous. If King Qi does not have this kind of luck, it means that he is not a good talent. This is his fate, Yu Shenjun said. In the fate, you can't, there is always someone who is sorry that I can't protect. After that, Yu Shenjun left with everyone respectfully seeing him off. Suyuexi's fierce reaction made the elders deal with the matter lightly. It was not a turmoil in the punishment hall. Since Zhang Zizai is not guilty, this matter can be considered to be over. But everyone knew that Lord Yu was definitely angry. He had known the truth for a long time. He just wanted to put Zhang Zizai, who was the last to take action, into the prison god furnace. Suyuexi, as the daughter of the king of Capital God, stopped him with a fierce attitude, which made him, who was already depressed after losing his son, unable to vent his anger. He was not in a good mood and was afraid that he would release his anger. So from beginning to end, the king of Capital God had a serious expression. However, Suyuexi didn't know this. She really thought that the gods didn't understand it at the beginning. Now that Zhang Zizai is fine, she is particularly happy. While everyone is still here, she hurriedly said, "Dad, and all the uncles of the gods, you don't know Zhang Zizai yet. In fact, he is very talented and can be trained as a core disciple. He has a low birth and comes from the totem world below. He passed the God King Palace assessment this year to become a disciple of the God King Palace. He has made very fast progress and also obtained the infinite world in the initiation ceremony. At that time, it was rumored that he failed to evolve, but it was not the case. This cunning guy hid the source of evolution and did not evolve at all." "Oh, then what?" The God King showed an interested look. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 862. As if she was bragging about her boyfriend to her father, Suyuexi was excited in front of all the gods. He got the source of evolution infinite time on the God King battlefield, merged into infinite time and space, and now he has evolved into a god-level totem. It's called the Infinite Time and Space Holy Dragon Totem. You should know better than me what type of evolutionary source infinite time and space is. After these words came out, the king of gods and the other gods looked at each other in confusion. Even Mu Feng's eyes lit up and he looked at Zhang Zizai with some envy. "Show me the power of the totem." King Du Shen was speechless, but 11 He Shenjun was slightly interested in Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai didn't know how to show it yet, so Zai Shenjun said again, "Just attack me as much as you can." "Yes, Lord God." Zhang Zizai gathered the broken time blade and the sky-breaking slash, and attacked at the same time. In fact, he was not willing to show it. Yu Shenjun had just died, and if he suddenly became a key talent for training, how could Yu Shenjun feel comfortable? It's just that Suyuexi doesn't know the subtle relationship between this and is eager to get Zhang Zizai's attention. This feeling is understandable. The power of the time-breaking blade and the sky-breaking slash can be understood by all the gods at a glance. Yes, it is worthy of being the top divine-level evolutionary source, more mysterious than 11 ER's eternal supreme. Zai Shenjun made a judgment. The atmosphere in the punishment hall was a little subtle. Suyuexi, who was really happy because Zhang Zizai was recognized. After showing the totem, she said, "And we found the inheritance of the God of Death in the ruins of the God of Death. At the beginning, I wanted to inherit, but Xuemingzi suddenly appeared and disrupted the plan, and then he became a god in a daze. After becoming a god, I gave him the relic of the killing god. Now he should have succeeded. I thought about it at the time. After a while, I discovered that it was a divine king-level inheritance. Zhang Zizai, did you succeed?" Zhang Zizai nodded. "That's great." She smiled, her eyes fascinated by the crescent moon. She knew that the god-level totem boundless time and space, the god-level killing god inheritance, the top source of power, and the age of no more than 20 years old, all these gave Zhang Zizai the capital to be a first-line talent in the God King Palace. She wanted to Zhang Zizai can be better cultivated. So she looked at the King of Gods with hope. "It's indeed good, Yanyu, train him well," King Dushan said. Yes, Xuanyu nodded softly. Zhang Zizai looked at her. She glared at Zhang Zizai and muttered in a low voice, "You bastard, how dare you lie to me and fail to evolve even if you hide the source of evolution, I'll take care of you when I get back." Everything seemed to be happy, and the turmoil on the God King's battlefield seemed to be over. Zhang Zizai has so much capital, and his reputation will definitely spread throughout the God King's palace within a short period of time. Many people know everything that happens here. Next, all the gods left first. Yunziao wanted to talk to Suyuexi, but she was taken away by her parents. Suyanyu understood and said to Zhang Zizai, "You go back to Yanyu Tower first, and I will settle the score with you later." Zhang Zizai understood that he was afraid that the King of Gods would have to talk to Suyuexi alone. He respectfully resigned, left the punishment hall, and returned to the Yanyu Tower. Although he was alone, he knew that there were still many people watching him when he left. A trip to the God King's battlefield really made him a more influential figure in the God King's palace. In the punishment hall, King Dushan stood up and walked to his daughter. He looked at the pair of daughters, and finally his eyes fell on Suyuexi, and asked, "Do you like Zhang Zizai?" Suyanyu smiled after hearing this and said, "Dad, don't overthink it. This is absolutely impossible. This Zhang Zizai has a notorious reputation. 11ER hates him the most. She is willing to take Zhang Zizai with her. She must have thought of the battlefield of the God King. Teach him a lesson. I let him go because I liked Zhang Zizai's cleverness and thought he might be able to help." But she knew so much, but what she never expected was that Suyuexi looked up at the King of Gods with a very firm look in her eyes. "I like it." "Ah. You're not sick, are you?" "What kind of brain?" Suyanyu almost fainted. What kind of plot was this? She was unprepared. She said speechlessly, "You can't be so arrogant that this little boy can be so charming. You can't even see it with me. Are you not dating a man of your own age? Why are you so casual? This guy must have deceived you with his smooth talk." "No, I just like him, I just like him," Suyuexi pouted. "The way she looks now is the way she used to be." "I'm dizzy." Suyanyu touched her head. She felt that she must be sick and hallucinating. She couldn't help but take a few more glances. Is this still her unruly and willful sister? She suddenly knew what the trouble was, and she said, "Dad, what should I do with Uncle Yu?" King Dushan said, "She has made such a fuss, what can we do?" "What do you mean?" Suyuexi was a little confused and said, "Uncle Yu won't blame him. It really has nothing to do with him. If you want to blame him, you can only blame me." "Really?" Suyanyu stretched out her hand, poked her head, and said, "No wonder it's so easy to deceive people into being fascinated. Your mind is too simple." After finishing, she looked at the King of Gods again and said, "Dad, how should we deal with this matter?" Suyuexi was a little nervous because she was worried about her father's opposition. After all, Zhang Zizai had no background at all and might not have a future. After all, he had not yet become a god. And she also gradually realized that it seemed a little uncomfortable for her to hold Zhang Zizai up now that Yu Shenjun had lost his son. "There is definitely no way for my father to explain it to Lord Goshen. After all, the God King's trip to the battlefield was arranged by the God King." The more she thought about it, the more worried she became. She thought that if her father stopped her, she would probably have to elope. 11ER The King of Gods stretched out his hand and gently placed it on her shoulder, saying, "You were a mortal before, and I guided you. Now that you have become a god, you should walk your own way. Whether it is a blessing or a curse, you will bear it yourself." "What you mean is that Daddy will not stop me from liking him." Suyuexi was so moved that her eyes were red. The King of Gods smiled faintly, not knowing what he meant specifically. But Suyuexi was already very happy, and hurriedly hugged the King of Gods. "Gao Xian, thank you, Daddy, I knew that Daddy loved me the most. Daddy is so good. Oh, don't think too much, your sister hasn't married yet, don't even think about it. Xuanyu rolled her eyes. Humph, Suyuexi snorted, but her face was still full of smiles. 11 The king of the gods stared into her eyes and said, you must understand my meaning deeply. You choose to take a different path. Some people may not be the most suitable for you in life. You must consider your own choices. If you destroy yourself because of this, Dad can only regret it.